Wird schon Probleme mit. Also hättest du mir den Ding nicht. Ich habe mir nur gedacht, soll ich einfach prinzipiell Namen sammeln, den Avatar, weil aus der Hand kann ich den rausschneiden und der hätte den negated und dann habe ich dann hätte ich den.
Ja, du hast ja dein Negate für einen schwulen Albion im Friedhof aufgemacht. Deswegen habe ich halt getriggert, ich habe gewusst, du wäschst das da. Ja, das habe ich wieder mal spekuliert, schau. Und du hast genauso du.
Ja, weil ich Brandon nicht so gut kenne. Das ist das Thema.
Ja, du hast halt wahrscheinlich gewusst, davon, dass ich die Branded Fusion Dampen auf die Hand nehme und so, man weiß nicht.
Ja, dann geht er da wieder auf. Also das ist eh Wahnsinn. Aber dass du wieder in diesem 6-Karten-Pile, ja, schnappst du hörst wieder die Branded Fusion, die ist einfach wieder zu hoch. Das gibt's ja.
Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Here we have a match. Voiceless Voice versus Snake Eye Fireking Fiendsmith. And here the Snake Eye player won the dice roll. As usual. Nothing special here. So, I'm the player on the right side, just so you know. And, well, let's see. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so I start with discarding Voiceless. And this is actually a game changer. I mean, this card actually, it changes the way how player interact with their opponent. Because at this point, you have to make a decision. Do you want to commit into a board that actually, you know, can do something, or you basically skip the turn? And it's really interesting to see what it does to the game. And at this point, so far, nothing happened. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like the Fireking player is actually reading his own cards. This card actually is a proxy. So, yeah, he printed the card for the duel, which is quite fun. Okay, so we see a Poplar. Again, nothing special here. Just the usual Snake Eye stuff. Okay, and it looks like I still have, 4 cards in hand. The thing is, I bricked quite hard. I mean, literally, like I had in my hand Nadir's Servant, Maximus, and I think I had Droplet and one other card. I don't remember. Maybe we see it here, but I'm not sure. And the funny thing is that well, let's see. Because the next card that I draw is another Nadir Servant. So actually, it was a bricky hand, and I just, you know, I just drew into more bricks. But it doesn't stop there. Okay. So this board actually, okay. Here's the first draw from Voiceless. And I was looking at the card and I was thinking, okay, it is another Nadir Servant. And I thought, well, that's bad. But on the other hand, I thought, okay, the more cards that I actually have to discard for Droplet, you know, the more cards I can negate. So actually, I wasn't sure. At this point, I also wasn't sure about, you know, how many summons he will still make, how deep he wanna commit into the game. And so far, only one draw from Voiceless, which usually you end up with 2 to 3 draws, you know, on average. So, but it absolutely stops your opponent from overextending. Absolutely, it works. So, okay, so it looks like we had a little discussion there. Actually, I don't remember, but what it was. Okay, so now he activates Engraver, Fiendsmith Engraver. which is a pretty cool card, to be honest. And now it looks like he actually tried to get into the Fiendsmith engine. And so far, it doesn't look like he has an optimal board yet. So now I actually was reading the card. I don't know the name of the card, but I think it was the one Fireking monster that actually, when you destroy it by battle, you can summon a level 3 or lower fire monster. And if it is destroyed by card effects, it returns on the next standby phase and it wipes the board. I mean, it's a good card. Actually, the replay that you see here, it's actually at a 1.2 speed, because we actually played really slow. I mean, turn 1 from the Snake Eye player actually took about 10 minutes, and turn 2, my turn, took about the same, so about 10 minutes. It was really, I mean, it was a good game, and personally, I really like the kind of games where you have to really think about what are you gonna do. It's not the basic stuff. You can't just do the basic combos because it doesn't work. And also he didn't have an optimal hand. And I mean, things will get pretty interesting very soon. Let's see. Okay, it looks like they still have a small discussion going on. Okay, I'm arguing. Well, that's quite funny to see. Not much to argue here. Anyways. Oh, okay, so yeah. So he actually think about committing more into the board. So I think he's going for Princess. Well, and that was my 6th card. And that card was Dogmatica Maximus. I mean, I could have, you know, out of 40 cards, maybe I was playing 41, I think. I mean, it didn't happen. It wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time. I had Maximus on my hand. I mean, like 9 out of 10 times, which is crazy and mathematically impossible. But I mean, I can do it. So maybe I should play more cards in my deck, like 44, 45. Because, you know, the more cards you play into your deck, you know, the less likely it is that you, like, draw a one-off. But, yeah. Okay. Let's see. I think he just... And his turn? And now, draw phase. Okay. So, now the tragedy begins. Quite literally. Because I had on my hand 2 Nadi Servant, I had Dogmatic Maximus, I had Droplet. Oh, right. Well, the card on his field is not Princess, it's that ship. I don't know. So the idea was, and the problem at the same time, I wanted him to actually summon Princess first, and I wanted to activate Droplet after, but it wasn't possible. So I was thinking about, okay, I mean, I need to actually activate Droplet anyways, because I need to get Maximus on the grave, because having Maximus on hand is just terrible. I can't activate Nadir Servant, so I need to get Maximus on the grave. So I was actually reading Princess again, and I realized, okay, he only can summon it when I special summon a monster, because that's the condition that, you know, he needs for Princess to activate the effect. And I could not trigger that yet. So that was quite unfortunately. But well, unfortunately, I had to do anything anyways, right? So I was starting with Droplet, and at that point I was like, okay, should I negate 1 or 2? Because it doesn't really make a difference, right? The card on the left, it doesn't really do anything at a point. I mean, I can't destroy a card effect yet, so it doesn't trigger, and I won't run over it, so it also can summon a monster, right? And the ship itself does nothing on board, so at a point, I mean, to my knowledge, I think that the only interruption that he had was Princess from Grave. So this board actually was totally beatable. It was really actually easy to out. And I'm not sure if it was thanks to Fuvolos, but I think that Fuvolos played a pretty big part in that. But my problem was that the only way to start the game, to get into the game, was actually Nadir's Servant, and I needed to get Maximus to the grave. I had no starter in my hand, so no low, no diviner, no barrier, no Saphira, like nothing that actually could help me to just build a board. So that was really unfortunate. And usually that doesn't happen. So, I mean, what I did with my Voiceless build, and I eventually share a deck profile later, I changed the entire concept of the deck. A week ago, we had a small internal tournament, and I was also playing against the Snakeout player. I was also playing against the Exodia OTK, which was a pretty amazing deck, to be honest. It's really cool to see such decks having success, and it's quite strong. And I also played against a Traptrix pilot, Ragnar Riker, whatever. Was also quite interesting. Not as strong, but interesting. And against a Thunder Dragon, I think. So yeah, anyways. So now I think I activated Nadir's Servant. Okay, well, let's go back into the game. So I activated Nadir's Servant, and I was thinking about, okay, what I want to discard here. And actually, I think that I was going for the Winda play, because I knew that he's not aware of that, so I could actually risk it. So in order to get Winda on board, which actually right now doesn't really make a lot of sense because he can just run over it, I need to discard a Dark Monster and a Shadal monster in order to actually Fusion Summon. Yeah. Okay, so I discarded the Apo whatever, right? To actually add a Schism from the deck to my hand. And then I need to discard 1 card from my hand, which I discarded Schism right away. Then I special summoned Dogmatica Maximus. And I banished, I think it was it the Shadal card? Yeah, it was the Shadal card. To activate the effect of Dogmatica Maximus. So both players have to send 2 extra deck monsters to the graveyard with a different name. And I was obviously going for the Shadal Constructor and Garura. So now, well, it looks like they're arguing again. But anyways, I'm going to activate Garura to draw a card, and also like the Shadal Constructor to add the Schism back to my hand. And here, actually, I did a misplay. I actually realized right after, because when you activate the effect of Constructor, you don't need to banish it. You don't need to banish it. So it stays in the grave. And well, we are almost 20 minutes into the game, and still nothing really happened. Okay, so I said 1, I said 2, I said 3, I said 4 cards, and everyone was like, "What are you doing, man? I mean, that's crazy. That's a crazy break." And I was like, "Yeah, well, it's really a terrible game for me so far." But well, it's actually quite cool. So the card on the left is Shadol Shizum, I guess. I also said a Radiance of the Voiceless Voice. I had one, was it a Purge? Maybe? And one Guardian. And I think at the point I just, end my turn. Yeah. So what I was mentioning earlier is actually, I actually changed the concept of the deck. So it's correct when I say that I am actually doing well going second, because the way how I build the deck, it works almost better going second, right? So with Fubulos, you have the ability to draw into more cards. With Droplet, you actually, in combination with Fubulos, you can negate more cards on board because you can afford the discard. And okay, now I activated Radiance, and I had no engine. At that point, I still had no engine. So I was thinking like, I need somehow get into my engine. So I had no ritual spell that I could actually shuffle back into the deck. I had no ritual monster, I think, eventually. I'm not 100% sure. To shuffle it back into the deck to actually get, into my engine. But what I'm going to do next is I will eventually activate Guardian, or I will go directly into the Shadol play, which I can only activate in the main phase. So, okay, it looks like, okay, I activate Radiance of the Voiceless Voice, and I shuffle back Skull Guardian. And in order to, either special summon a monster from my deck, a Voiceless monster, or add it to my hand. And, I could not really summon anything. Yeah, okay, I added a Saravis. I think that I thought having a targeting protection eventually helps. I mean, it can negate Princess, right? And it also helps to, out Imperm. Okay, so here I activate Guardian of the Voiceless Voice, which probably I am the only Voiceless Voice player who actually play Guardian of the Voiceless Voice in the main deck. And that's actually the concept of the deck is it's a going second OTK winning condition. So it's not a going second OTK deck. It's a winning condition that I added to the deck. But the idea is going second. Okay, so here I activate Shadol Schism. Let's do that first. Well, okay, so I activated in the main phase Shadol Schism, and I fusion summon 2 monsters, a dark monster from the grave, which was Garura, and Shadol Constructor, in order to summon Winda. And it was really funny because the Fireking player actually had no idea what Winda does. So here things get a little bit tricky. Because he was like, okay, I made a special summon. So he was thinking about actually activating Princess from Grave. Which I was like, okay, you can do that. Because the only thing that I was focusing on at that moment was the fact that Winda cannot be destroyed by card effects. So I thought, well, I mean, you can target her, but you can't destroy her anyways. Which actually was wrong, because in order to summon Princess from the grave, in order to activate the effect, Winda actually needs to be destroyed. Because he needs to destroy both monsters and then can summon a princess. But actually, that was not what's wrong here in this scenario, because he can't even summon princess, because princess would be the second special summon, and he already committed a special summon with Engraver. So Engraver was his first special summon, and Winda locks you out of, or basically Winda says each player can only special summon once per turn. So it also affects me, but in this case, he actually had no real idea what to do here. So I have on board Maximus and Winda. Plus I have Guardian activated, Radiance, which I already used this turn, and Shadal Schism, which also has a nice second effect. So if you fusion summon like Winda in this case, and he has a dark monster on field, I can pop it, which I think he did not had at the point of the summon. So now he's reading Guardian, and Guardian is such an underrated card, because what Guardian actually says is that you can once per turn make your Skull Guardian gain all the attack points, the original attack, which is important, the original attack points from all monsters on the field. Which actually yesterday it enabled me 2 OTKs. Because Skull Guardian usually has 4,100 attack. And if he has like a Princess or Engraver, or just, 2-3 monsters on the board, you usually get up to 10, 11, 12,000 attack. So in most cases, that's enough for an OTK. But Guardian does more than that, because Guardian's main effect is even better, which is a permanent effect, which means that every time, it's once per turn, by the way, every time a monster you control gets destroyed, and that includes any monster, like literally any monster, you can special summon a Skull Guardian from the deck, ignoring his summoning conditions. And that's just crazy. So in this scenario, actually, it doesn't matter what he destroyed. If he would destroy Winda, even Winda, then I can, cheat out a Skull Guardian. And that's crazy, right? And I also can activate the second effect at the same turn, because it's each effect once per turn. So I can activate the attack boost, which is a very good defense strategy against Tempai Dragon. And it's a very, very good OTK strategy going second against almost any deck. And I thought, after the tournament last week, I need to change the concept of the deck and play Voiceless the way it eventually was intended to be played. Because nobody's playing Guardian. But Guardian is such an amazing card. Like, I remember back then in 2022, when I played Sprite, I actually was one of the only players who actually added Double Cross to the deck, to the main deck. And almost no list back then played Double Cross, which it changed, after, I don't remember who it was, but, one Sprite player who actually performed really well at the YCS, he added Double Cross to the main deck. And after that, Double Cross was, like, it was a standard deck choice in almost every Sprite deck. And I was like, okay. It's funny because usually you are going after a list and not are inventing, a list. Anyways. So, okay, at that point, I was actually.
Ja, das sagst du mal.
Du, wir werden jetzt dann eh nochmal kurz quatschen, wie wir da weiter vorgehen und das mal so.
I did normal summon low in this case because it made more sense as I only have one special summon thanks to window. So I normal summon low, then I place barrier, activate barrier to add Saphira to my hand. Then I activate Saphira's effect to discard a ritual spell and add a ritual monster to my hand. And from that point on, actually, it was game. It was game. So actually now I do ritual summon, I go for the Skull Guardian, I go battle phase, I activate the effect of Guardian, protect of the Voiceless voice, and it's game. It's just game. It's 4,000, window has 2,200, so it's about 6,300. And then we have like the ship and engraver, which actually, well, that's game. That's game. We wasted a lot of time here. We could actually, or the Fireking player actually could have scooped here, because he couldn't do anything. Couldn't do much anything else. Anyway. Okay. So, what is he thinking about to do here? I mean, it's game. So, the board actually here looks quite, really quite interesting. Because that's such an unusual Voiceless board, and usually that never happens. What happens indeed is that, so when you go second with this deck, and you know, as I said, I can share the list later, is you let your opponent commit. Let him build a board, let him play the game. Usually you play like a lot of hand traps in the deck, but in this specific build, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because in Voiceless, and Voiceless is a deck which is actually slightly behind other like meta decks. I wouldn't consider it as a meta deck at the moment, specifically because you can't play like 15 to 19 hand traps, like Centurion, for example, or even like Snake Eye, right? So you can play like 12 to 13, and that's too less. The impact that you do is too less. And I thought, well, if that doesn't work, I have to change the concept of the deck. And what I did actually was I put out Ash, I put out Whaler, and I add like Droplet and Fubulos. And I thought, well, the deck is actually doing well going first, but it struggles going second. And the idea is actually to, I added two strategies here. The first was a going first strategy, which actually is the window play. So I thought, well, okay, if I establish a board like with a Skull Guardian and low, and I also draw into Nadir's Servant, get into the Nadir line, then it's a really good board because when you have that on board, you have the target protection from barrier, and he only can attack a Skull Guardian or a ritual monster, right? So he can't even attack Winda, and get rid of her that way, which is pretty good play going first. And going second, you don't need much either, right? So all you need is like the basic board: low, Skull Guardian, barrier. That's it. Because usually the card that you place in turn 2 is Guardian, protect of the Voiceless voice. So yeah, you could do it with the Dynamondo play, or if you have barrier in hand, which is optimal for this play, you just activate barrier, and when you bring low on board, or when low comes back from the grave, whatever, you actually place Guardian right away, so you can activate its effect on your opponent's turn. So now we are in game 2, and the Snake Eye player is going first again. So yesterday I went like second for 4 times, I think. No, that's not true, because every game I went second, I actually... Yeah, it's true. I won. Every game I went second. So... Now it looks way better for the Snake Eye player. Way better. He had like Bonfire, now he has the Witch. Now... Yeah, that looks good. And, you know, because I don't play any hand traps, he actually has, you know, no barriers here. Snake Eye Ash.
Du hast aber nur Scheiße noch suchen.
Was? Ist gut, ist fein. Ist fein.
Destroy you.
Na, ein Zucker-Scheiß Wunder, der Full-Dings, gell?
Warte, was ich nicht schon
You know, the Snake Eye matchup is such a hard matchup for the Voiceless deck. It's really one of the worst matchups, but to be honest, also Duel is not much easier. It's also really hard to beat Duel and also Temper Dragon. So, you know, as a Voiceless player, I try to find a strategy to make the deck viable again. Even though it's just not good enough, I think, yet, at this point. So now the Snake Eye player has Fireking Island on the field. Ponix and the other Fireking card that actually protects the island. I was reading a card because I was asking if it protects once per turn, like the protection effect once per turn, or like once per whatever chain. I don't know. Oh, I'm arguing again. Quite funny to see here. And now I'm reading the card again. And I was saying, hey, it's once per turn. It's like here, big in capital letters. Because the idea behind it was, I have a pop from Nadir, Servant, right? And I have a second pop, in theory, from Maximus, or whatever I done. So I was like, okay, if you protect it once, then I just, you know, pop it a second time, right? So now it looks way better for the Snake Eye player. He bringing back Ponix. Activate the effect from Snake Eye Ash. Now he's actually going to summon out a Flame Birch. And he draw a card. At a point I was still like, okay, this board is still beatable. Unfortunately, this time I, you know, did not have a Fubulos. Unfortunately. As Fubulos, my boy. He really serves me well, really. Fubulos is such a great card. Such a great card. So strong against so many decks. It's so strong against Temper Dragon. It's so strong against Snake Eye, Fireking. It's so strong against Duel. Because you always get like 2 to 3 draws almost guaranteed. Because these players, they have to commit into a board. You can't skip the turn without, you know, like having a board. It just doesn't work. Which makes me think like, actually, Fubulos is a crazy strong card in the Tempai deck. Because giving Tempai Dragon like just one or two additional cards is actually really dangerous. You don't want to do that. And also worth mentioning, you know, when I play in a tournament and I build the deck going second, and I win the dice roll, and I say, well, you go first. Then, I mean, like, literally every player is thinking, okay, he's playing Tempai Dragon. But nobody would imagine that I play Voiceless. Like, Voiceless is not the best going second deck, but I think with Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice, you actually have a winning condition going second, which is, I mean, I have to test it more. Maybe I try to build it even more going second, like adding more strong board breakers. So at that point, actually, I think we only had like, what was it, like 6 or 7 minutes left, and our life points were equal. So actually what I was trying to do here was actually to reduce his life points by just a tiny amount, it doesn't matter. And then win, you know, win in time. That was my plan. I mean, it's not the best plan. And I didn't really had a lot to commit here. So it was a tough choice. I knew at that point giving him another turn, actually, you know, I wouldn't survive that. So I was Ritual Summon here, and okay, I used the Penelgraph Dragon from my hand to summon my Skull Guardian, which again was not an optimal play. But I couldn't play it any better because my hand was terrible again. Yesterday I really bricked hard. I mean, I almost never had low in hand. I never had a Diviner, Barrier, and I hardly ever had Zephyra, which was really quite unfortunate. So now he popped Skull Guardian with Princess, which he didn't realize at the point that when you destroy a Skull Guardian and there's Prayers Engrave, yeah, one Skull Guardian down, next one up, right? So now I had another Skull Guardian on the board, and I was checking, okay, do you have any like on-field effects, anything that could stop me from attacking you and making, like, I don't know, 250 damage? And you know, it seems like he had nothing to stop me from running over Princess with yeah, 2050 attack. So it looks like they're actually arguing again. But, you know, it's valuable time here. So, I would say, boys, hurry up. Time is running. So now I mean, it's me, right? So I declared an attack, and I made damage, 250 life points, I think it was. And at that point, I had an advantage here in terms of life points. And, you know, the game was about to end I mean, it was already over because I started the timer. I think it was 2 to 3 minutes after we started the game, the match. So it actually was quite fair at this point. Because I think the game ends in 2 to 3 minutes, but we already, I mean, the match was over, right? And I was not happy. I was really not happy with that. Not the best way, not the most beautiful way to win. I see the timer here. What is it? 26 seconds? But the game was already over because, as I mentioned, I started later. So, I mean, giving him another turn, actually, he would eventually, he would have won. But that's how it is, right? So, yeah. That was quite an interesting matchup because both players actually did not have optimal hands. And, you know, especially I had a really terrible hand in the first round. But it was quite cool to see Voiceless in action, and it was also quite cool to see what it actually does to the game. In my case, specifically, I didn't really had any advantage of it, mainly because I drew another Nadir servant and I drew another I drew Maximus, which was suboptimal. I could have drawn into way better cards, right? So that's where I eventually like will change the deck and just a little bit more. I have some ideas, and as I mentioned, if you want to see deck profile, I can do that, and also explain the strategy in detail. Eventually, making a combo video, whatever. So yeah, that was one of the first matches on our channel. We will not comment on all on them, but yeah. So yeah, see ya. Bye guys.
Drauf, wir